Stage 1, the kid nobody could catch. It starts on a Tuesday afternoon. You're 7. Your dad works at a kart track, not as an owner, not as a coach. He fixes engines, sweeps the pit lane, gets paid just enough so you grow up around karts the way other kids grow up around football pitches. The smell of fuel, the sound of engines, the asphalt vibrating under your feet. One quiet afternoon, the track owner puts you in a kart. No race. No audience, just you and the machine and an empty circuit. You come back in 8 minutes later. He checks the timing system, checks it again, walks over to your dad and says nothing for a long moment. Where has this kid been? That's the beginning. By 10, you're winning regionally. By 12, nationally. You're not just fast, you're intelligently fast. You read corners other drivers don't even see. Parents stand at the fence and go quiet in that particular way people go quiet when they see something rare. $50,000 per year just to kart. Your dad still works at the track. Your mom takes a second job. You eat sandwiches in car parks while other families eat in restaurants. The van breaks down twice a year like clockwork. But you show up, every single time. And at 15, soaked in rain, standing on top of a podium at an international karting championship, visor up, fist raised, a man you've never seen before takes your photograph. He works for an phone team academy. Stage 2, the academy, the door that cuts both ways. The letter arrives 6 weeks later. You've been selected, invited to test, potentially offered a place in one of the most prestigious junior programs in motorsport. Your mom reads it 3 times at the kitchen table. Your dad sits with his hands flat on the table, staring at nothing. You test. You're brilliant, you get in, overnight everything changes. You have a coach, a nutritionist, a simulator schedule, a media trainer who teaches you how to answer questions without really answering them, engineers analyzing your data after every single lap. You're 16 years old and your life runs on spreadsheets. Formula 4. $250,000 a season covered. You win 3 races. The academy is pleased. You move up. Formula 3. $600,000 to $900,000 per season. You don't have that money. The academy does. And that's the thing about academy backing. It's everything until the moment it isn't. Midway through your second Formula 3 season, you're called into a meeting. It's not a long meeting. They're going in a different direction. They've signed a 15-year-old from Brazil whose father has commercial connections in South America. It's a business decision. They respect you enormously. The meeting lasts 11 minutes. You count. You walk out into a gray afternoon with no funding, no team, and a career that 2 hours ago had seemed completely on track. You sit in your car in the car park for 40 minutes. You don't call anyone. Then you start the engine and drive home. Stage 3, the stage nobody talks about. It's not dramatic. That's what makes it the hardest. There's no crash, no injury, no villain. Just a Tuesday morning where your phone doesn't ring and you have to figure out what you are now that the structure holding your whole life together is gone. You're 17, real speed, real results. Data that any engineer in the paddock would look at and nod, and absolutely no way forward, so you do something that feels humiliating at the time. You start asking. Emails, hundreds of them. To sponsors, investors, local businesses, anyone who might want their name on a racing car. You write them at midnight. You rewrite them at 2 a.m. You send them and then you wait. Most don't reply, ever. Some say no. A handful string you along for weeks and then say no. You learn to tell within the first 2 sentences of a reply whether it's real or not. And then one morning, a logistics company you've never heard of says yes. Not a big yes. A nervous yes. Their logo on the side of your car, enough to cover 40% of what you need. The rest? A bank loan your parents cosign without hesitating for a single second. A crowdfunding campaign your old karting friends share everywhere. A handful of smaller deals stitched together like a patchwork quilt holding a broken thing together. You finish Formula 3, 6th in the championship. Not where you wanted. Not what you dreamed, but you're still in it. And Formula 2 is waiting. Stage 4 Formula 2, where the knife is sharpest. $2 million per season. You get there at 20, through a private team that sees enough in your numbers to take a risk. The budget is thin. The car isn't the best, but you're in. And Formula 2 is different from everything below it. It's not just faster. It's meaner. Every single driver here is the best from their country, their region, their junior series. There are no passengers. Everyone belongs here. But now the pressure isn't just about lap times. Every race weekend, there are people in the paddock with lanyards and clipboards and quiet conversations happening just out of earshot. Team principals. Scouts. People who will make decisions about your future in rooms you'll never enter, based on data you'll never fully see. Every single lap is an audition. First season, solid, points, a podium, the phone doesn't ring. Second season, a race win, 3 podiums, 5th in the championship, still, the phone doesn't ring. You sit in an empty motorhome after the final race of the season. The track is emptying out, trucks being loaded. Season over. You open your phone, scroll through your contacts, and try to think of who to call. There is nobody to call. The 20 seats on the Formula One grid are filled by the drivers who got the call. You didn't get the call. You are 22 years old. You have spent 16 years chasing something that has decided, quietly and without any explanation at all, not to choose you. You fly home. Stage 5, the year everything goes quiet. This is the part people skip over, because it isn't cinematic. You don't rage, you don't make a speech. You don't have a breakdown on a rain-soaked track somewhere with swelling music behind it. You just stop. You work a normal job. You sleep normal hours for the first time since you were 12. You eat what you want. You watch races on television and feel something sitting in your chest that you don't have a word for. Not anger, not grief. Something quieter than both of those. The hardest part isn't losing the dream. It's losing the structure the dream gave your life. Without the schedule, the training, the races, who are you? You've been a racing driver since you were 7 years old. You don't know how to be anything else. And then 11 months after you flew home, your phone rings, an old contact, a junior team. They need someone who can read telemetry and translate it into something a 16-year-old can actually understand and act on in the car. You say yes, not with excitement, just because you need something to do. And then you sit down with the first driver's data. You can see it instantly. Exactly what he's doing wrong in turn 7, the entry speed, the steering input, the way he's fighting the car instead of trusting it. You can see it the way you can only see it if you've made that exact mistake yourself 10,000 times at tracks across 12 different countries. You explain it. He tries it. Half a second faster. Immediately. He looks at you like you're magic. You're not magic, you just know. And for the first time in 11 months, something lights up. The final stage, the podium you never expected. 10 years pass. You are in your early 30s. You have a title race engineer and a headset in a pit wall position at a team that 4 years ago nobody had heard of. You have found drivers, developed them, lost sleep over their mistakes, felt something close to a parent's pride at their wins. You have built something real from the rubble of a dream that didn't go the way you planned. And now on a Sunday afternoon at a circuit you once spent years fantasizing about racing at, your driver is crossing the finish line in first place. The radio explodes. Your team is screaming. Your driver is screaming. You stand very still in the middle of all of it, because you know something the cameras will never capture. In the garage behind you, a 15-year-old kid, one you spotted at a regional karting event 8 months ago, one you convinced the team to fund, one you have coached through every single thing you learned the hard way, is watching this on a monitor. His eyes are wide. He is seeing his future for the first time. You key your radio, calm, completely clear. Brilliant job, bring it home. And then just for a second, 1 second, you let yourself feel it. The kart track at 7, the academy letter, the 11-minute meeting, the emails sent at midnight, the loan your parents signed without hesitating, the motorhome, the phone that never rang, all of it, the dream didn't die. It just took a shape you never expected. If this story hit you, stop and drop a comment right now. Which stage broke you the most? The karting years and what they cost the family, the 11-minute meeting, or that night in the motorhome when the phone never rang and the season was over. I read every single comment, every one. And if you know someone right now who is chasing something enormous, doesn't matter if it's football, music, business, anything, share this video with them. Because this story was never really about Formula One. It's about what it costs to want something that badly, and what happens when the door you aimed at your whole life doesn't open. Subscribe because the next video is coming, and it hits just as hard. Until then, drive on.